Describe intuitions in 10 words or less. Fast, doesn't use working memory. You have the feeling of being right, but when we have an intuition, we have reached some kind of conclusion. Elmo's bluffing. But we can't say exactly why we feel the way we do. Is it his eyes? His smile? The way his hands shake? To explain intuitions, we have to understand how the conscious and the unconscious minds work together. There are things happening in the brain that we're aware of. That's kind of our conscious mind and what we're paying attention to. And there are things happening in the brain that we're unaware of. So there's an implicit learning process going on all the time. Intuition is something from the unconscious part of our brain, something from our implicit learning system that bubbles up and sends a conclusion to our conscious brain. Intuitions largely come from two different kinds of experiences. If you've played hundreds and hundreds of games of chess, you have learned about strategy and tactics and certain opening patterns and endgame moves. A lot of that has been explicit learning, but your unconscious mind has not been passive. It's been working hard to pick up these subtle patterns that are showing up over and over and over again. Then when you see something that violates these patterns, you get the intuition that something isn't quite right. The main source of intuition is just that. Patterns that your unconscious mind has implicitly picked up on. Anytime that you confront the same situation multiple times, and we all do that throughout our lives all the time, we start to develop intuition. The other source of intuition has to do with these strings over here. Here's the problem. How do I tie these two strings together? I can try to stretch, but the strings just aren't close enough. And imagine I don't have any other tools around to help me. How do we solve this problem? Researchers gave this problem to a bunch of people, but half of these problem solvers saw a subtle hint before they were even given the problem to begin with. The researcher would accidentally knock one of these strings just as walking back and forth, just so it started swinging slightly. The key to solving this problem is to realize that you can get one string swinging and then stretch the other one out and kind of hold them together so that you can eventually tie the strings together. People in the group who had received this subtle hint solved the problem more often. But that's not the surprising part. The surprising part is that they couldn't describe where they got the idea. They had the insight, but they couldn't say why. This represents another source of intuition, which is a preferential access in your memory. Can you trust your intuition? Should you trust your intuition? The answer depends on the experience of the problem solver or decision maker and the nature of the problem. Now, imagine an unranked chess player looks at this position. They just have a feeling that moving this piece is the right thing to do. Do you take their advice? What about a grandmaster who can't really explain why, but believes that moving this piece is the right thing to do? How good our intuition is depends on our experience and the patterns that our brain has picked up on. The same can be said for the string problem. Now imagine if the swinging string wasn't the way to solve the problem, if that was a dead end. Then giving those problem solvers that subtle hint would actually make it less likely to solve the problem because they would have preferential access to a wrong way to solve the problem. We can always make it harder to solve a problem by framing a problem in a deceptive way. Intuitions are powerful and extremely useful, but they're not infallible. Maybe that's why we have an explicit and an implicit learning system. They're each powerful separately, but together they can solve a lot of problems. If you enjoyed this video, check out my other two videos here on problem solving. I think you'll like them. See you later.